What if the greatest threat to humanity
is not war, not nature, but our own intelligence?
For over 100 years, science has made us powerful.
But power without restraint has nearly ended us before.
Now the question isn't, can we build it?
It's... should we?
Science is the greatest gift humanity ever gave itself. It lifted us out of darkness, taught us how to light the night, how to cure disease, how to travel farther, faster, higher than any generation before us. Through science, we learned how the universe works. We split the atom. We decoded life itself. We reached into the smallest particles of existence and pulled out power that once belonged only to the stars. But every gift comes with a shadow, because science does not choose how it is used. It does not know good from evil. It does not feel regret. It simply obeys the hands that control it. In its earliest days, science was innocent. It was curiosity, a question whispered to the universe. Why does fire burn? Why do the stars move? Why do we fall ill, and why do we heal? Ancient scholars studied by candlelight, not dreaming of weapons, but of understanding. They believed knowledge would make humanity wiser. And for a long time it did. Then came power. With every discovery, humanity gained control over nature. With control came influence, and with influence came temptation. Fire became a tool of war. Chemistry became poison. Physics became force. And slowly, almost quietly, science began to change sides. History shows us a brutal pattern. Every breakthrough that could save lives could also end them. Electricity illuminated cities and powered execution devices.
Médecine 1000
and enabled human experimentation. The atom promised endless energy and delivered instant annihilation. The same equations that explain the universe were rewritten to erase cities from the map. This story is not about monsters in lab coats. Most scientists did not seek destruction. Many believed they were protecting their nations, their families, their future. But science does not stop at intention. Once knowledge is discovered, it cannot be undiscovered. Once power is unlocked, it cannot be locked away forever. As the world entered the age of war, fear became the strongest motivator. Fear of enemies. Fear of falling behind. Fear that if we don't build it, someone else will. And in that fear, ethics were negotiated, delayed, or forgotten entirely. By the time humanity realized what it had created, science was no longer just a tool. It had become a weapon, a deterrent, a threat hanging silently over the entire planet. A double-edged gift, one edge pointing toward progress, the other toward extinction. Today, that blade still hangs above us. Nuclear weapons remain armed. Chemical agents still exist. Biological research pushes boundaries faster than laws can follow. Artificial intelligence now learns how to decide faster than humans can think. The danger did not end with the past. It evolved. So the question is not whether science is dangerous. The real question is, are we wise enough to control the power we have created? Because history has already given us the answer, again and again. This is the story of how human genius became humanity's greatest threat. This is the story of the misuse of science and weapons.
When knowledge was innocent.
Before science had uniforms, before it had budgets, classifications, and security clearances, it had only one purpose: to understand. Knowledge was not owned by governments. It was not locked behind walls or guarded by soldiers. It lived in questions, and in the minds of those brave enough to ask them. The earliest scientists were not scientists at all. They were philosophers, stargazers, healers, and storytellers. They looked at the sky and asked, why does the sun rise and fall? Why do the seasons change? Why do humans get sick and sometimes recover? In ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China, and Greece, people recorded the movements of stars not for conquest, but for farming, navigation, and survival. Knowledge meant stability, not dominance. Humanity's earliest discoveries were modest, but transformative. Fire gave warmth, protection, and cooked food. The wheel allowed travel and trade. Basic metallurgy created tools instead of weapons. At this stage, science served community. Every discovery made life easier, safer, longer. No one imagined global destruction, because global power did not yet exist. In ancient Greece, thinkers like Aristotle and Hippocrates tried to explain the world without myth. Disease was no longer seen as divine punishment, but something that could be studied, treated, and prevented. Hippocrates famously swore, "First, do no harm." This single idea defined early science. Knowledge must protect life. Between the 8th and 14th centuries, science flourished across the Islamic world. Scholars translated Greek, Persian, and Indian texts. Mathematics, astronomy, chemistry, and medicine advanced rapidly. Hospitals were built. Surgery improved. Algebra was born. Science crossed borders, religions, and cultures. It belonged to humanity, not to armies. During the Renaissance, Europe rediscovered curiosity. Figures like Galileo Galilei challenged authority, not to destroy it, but to understand truth. Looking through his telescope, Galileo didn't see weapons. He saw moons, movement, a proof that the universe was larger and more complex than humans imagined. Knowledge was humbling. As experimentation replaced superstition, science gained power, but not purpose. The scientific method taught humans how to discover things. It did not teach them why. This separation was subtle, but dangerous. Science became capable of unlocking forces without considering consequences. Still, for centuries, discovery outpaced harm. Not everyone was blind to the risks. Some thinkers warned, what happens when knowledge exceeds wisdom? But the world was changing fast. Population grew. Empires expanded. Resources became competitive. Science, once guided by curiosity, was about to be guided by need and fear. By the late 19th century, chemistry could alter matter. Physics could release massive energy. Medicine could manipulate life itself. The innocence of science had not yet vanished, but it was no longer protected. It stood at the edge of a new era. One where knowledge would be measured not by understanding, but by power. Music slowly darkens. The question was no longer, what can we learn? It became, what can we control? And once that question was asked, there was no going back.
Curiosity as humanity's first tool.
Long before humanity learned to shape metal, before it built cities, wrote laws, or fought wars, it asked questions. Curiosity was our first tool, older than fire, older than language, older than civilization itself. When early humans looked at the night sky, they did not see enemies. They saw mystery. The stars became maps. The moon became a calendar. The sun became a promise that darkness would not last forever. Curiosity taught humans when to plant crops, when to hunt, when to move, and when to stay. It was not about domination. It was about survival. Early discoveries were not designed to overpower others. Fire was not a weapon. It was warmth, protection, and shared meals. Stone tools were extensions of hands, not instruments of conquest. Shelter was about safety, not territory. Knowledge was communal. What one person learned, the tribe learned. What one generation discovered, the next inherited. There was no secrecy, because there was nothing to steal. Curiosity taught humans to observe rather than command. They watched animals to learn migration routes. They studied rivers to understand flooding. They tracked stars to find direction. Nature was not something to be conquered. It was something to be understood. This mindset shaped early science. Observation before theory. Experience before explanation. Respect before mastery. Simple questions changed everything. Why does illness spread? Why do wounds heal? Why does water turn to ice and then to vapor? These questions gave birth to early medicine,
Astronomy. Agriculture.
mathematics. Curiosity built the foundations of civilization, quietly, patiently, without violence. In this early age, knowledge was humbling. Each answer revealed how small humanity was in a vast universe. Each discovery expanded wonder, not ego. Curiosity made humans listeners, not rulers. And for thousands of years, that was enough. But curiosity has no built-in limits. As understanding deepened, so did capability. And capability eventually invited ambition. The moment curiosity began to answer not just why, but how much, how fast, and how strong, the nature of knowledge began to change. Curiosity opened the door to science, but it did not choose what waited on the other side. That choice came later.
World War I. Science enters the battlefield.
The 20th century arrived with optimism. Electric lights filled cities. Medicine advanced. Industry promised prosperity. Science was accelerating faster than ever before. But when war came, it did not ask science to save lives. It asked science to win. World War I began in 1914, but nothing about it felt traditional. This was not a war of knights or even rifles alone. It was a war of machines, factories, and calculation. Entire nations mobilized their scientists, engineers, and chemists. For the first time in history, laboratories became as important as battlefields. War was no longer fought only by soldiers. It was fought by equations. The battlefield of World War I was not glorious. It was mud.
Rats. Disease.
Endless waiting. Millions of soldiers lived in trenches for months, sometimes years. Between them lay no man's land. A strip of death covered in barbed wire and bodies. Commanders searched desperately for a breakthrough. Science provided one. In 1915, something changed forever. German forces released chlorine gas across the battlefield at Ypres. A green-yellow cloud rolled silently toward enemy trenches. At first, soldiers were confused. Then they began to choke. The gas burned their lungs, blinded their eyes, and caused slow, agonizing deaths. Panic spread faster than the gas itself. Science had created a weapon that could not be seen, but could not be escaped. Soon, all sides joined in. Chemists developed new agents. Chlorine, phosgene, mustard gas. Mustard gas was especially cruel. It didn't always kill immediately. It burned skin, destroyed eyes, and scarred lungs for life. Victims screamed in pain days after exposure. Gas masks became standard equipment, a symbol of science turned hostile. By the end of World War I, over 90,000 soldiers died from chemical weapons. More than 1 million were injured. Survivors lived with permanent damage. Doctors were unprepared. There were no treatments for gas exposure. Medical science lagged behind weapons science. The imbalance was deadly. This was the first war where scientists were officially recruited. Chemists were ordered to create deadlier compounds. Engineers were tasked with improving artillery accuracy. Physicists optimized blast radius and shrapnel spread. Many scientists believed they were serving their country. Others were deeply conflicted. One chemist later admitted, "We stopped asking whether we should, and focused only on whether we could." Factories no longer produced tools for living. They produced
Shells.
gas canisters, machine gun parts. Science increased efficiency, not of life, but of death. Killing became scalable, more precise, more distant, more impersonal. The enemy was no longer a human face. It was a calculation. World War I marked a turning point. For the first time, science was deliberately weaponized. Civilian scientists became instruments of war. Ethics were subordinated to victory. The battlefield became a testing ground. If a weapon worked, it stayed. If it failed, it was redesigned. Human suffering became data. After the war ended, the world was horrified by what it had unleashed. International treaties banned chemical weapons. Leaders promised restraint. But behind closed doors, research continued. Stockpiles remained. Experiments moved underground. Science had entered the battlefield, and it was never fully removed. World War I proved something terrifying. That modern science could turn war into mass destruction, without requiring hatred, only obedience. The question was no longer, can science be used to kill? That had already been answered. The new question became, how much destruction is acceptable in the name of victory? The First World War ended not with resolution, but with exhaustion. Nations were broken, economies fragile, and millions were haunted by what modern science had made possible. The world promised itself, never again. Treaties were signed. Chemical weapons were condemned. New rules were written to restrain science from ever becoming a weapon of mass suffering again. But promises are easy to make, and far easier to ignore. In laboratories across Europe and beyond, scientists returned to work. Not as villains, but as professionals rebuilding careers interrupted by war. Chemistry advanced rapidly. Medicine improved. Industry expanded. And once again, science proved it was neutral, capable of saving lives or ending them. The gas masks of World War I were packed away, not destroyed. Mustard gas, chlorine, phosgene, classified, stored, renamed. The weapons still existed. Only the labels had changed. Governments reassured their people. These horrors are behind us. Yet behind closed doors, research continued. The Geneva Protocol of 1925 banned chemical warfare, but it allowed research, stockpiling, and defensive preparation. A loophole wide enough for an entire war to pass through. Factories reopened under civilian names. Military funding returned quietly. And scientists found themselves once again working under secrecy. Some asked questions. Some raised concerns. Many convinced themselves that preparation was not the same as intention. The 1920s felt peaceful, but unstable. Economic inequality widened. Political extremism gained followers. Nations humiliated by defeat searched for strength anywhere they could find it. When the Great Depression struck, desperation replaced restraint. In Germany, Italy, and Japan, science became a tool of national revival. Research was no longer guided by curiosity, but by command. Chemical agents were reframed as deterrents. Weapons were justified as defense. Scientists were told they were protecting their nations. And slowly, the line between preparation and aggression vanished. Some researchers destroyed their notes.
Others resigned.
Many stayed, believing that if they didn't do the work, someone else would. The warning signs were everywhere. Rising militarism, secret laboratories, propaganda replacing debate. But the world wanted peace so badly it ignored the evidence in front of it. By the late 1930s, science was no longer standing beside power. It was embedded within it. And when war returned, it did not arrive unprepared. Humanity had been warned. Humanity had time. Humanity chose to look away. The war was over, but peace did not arrive. Instead, the world entered a new age, an age defined not by what was happening, but by what might happen. The atomic bomb had ended World War II, and in doing so, it rewrote the rules of power forever. Science was no longer just a weapon. It was a threat hanging over the entire planet. Two superpowers emerged from the ruins: the United States and the Soviet Union. Former allies, now rivals. Both understood the same terrifying truth. Whoever controlled science controlled survival. What followed was not a traditional war. There were no clear front lines, no official declarations. Instead, there was fear. Fear measured in megatons. Fear calculated in seconds. Scientists became strategic assets. Physicists, engineers, chemists recruited, protected, monitored. Governments poured unimaginable resources into research, not to win battles, but to prevent annihilation by promising it. This was the logic of the Cold War. If we can destroy the world faster than they can, they won't dare attack us.
Mutually assure destruction. Mountain.
A doctrine built entirely on science and entirely dependent on restraint. Nuclear tests guard deserts, oceans, and skies. Mushroom clouds became routine. Radiation drifted across borders that politics could not contain. Children practiced hiding under desks. Families built fallout shelters in their homes. Sirens became part of everyday life. An entire generation grew up knowing that tomorrow was never guaranteed. Missiles stood ready in underground silos. Submarines carrying nuclear warheads patrolled the oceans silently. At any moment, a misunderstanding, a radar error, a human mistake could end civilization. And several times, it nearly did. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world came closer to nuclear war than it ever had before. Leaders stared at maps. Clocks ticked. Orders waited to be given. Science had given humanity godlike power, but not godlike wisdom. Behind the scenes, scientists wrestled with guilt. Some pushed forward, convinced deterrence was necessary. Others warned the world they were building something uncontrollable. A few tried to slow the arms race. Most were ignored, because fear was louder than caution. As technology advanced, so did the danger. Hydrogen bombs multiplied destructive power beyond imagination. Computer systems reduced launch decisions to minutes, then seconds. Humanity placed its fate in machines. The Cold War never exploded into global nuclear conflict, not because science made us safe, but because restraint, luck, and last-minute decisions intervened. Again and again. When the Cold War finally ended, the bombs did not disappear. They remained silent, waiting, maintained by science that could not be undone. The world exhaled, but never fully relaxed, because the lesson was clear. Science had not saved humanity. Humanity had survived science. Barely. And the question that lingered was no longer can we do this? But how long can we live like this before restraint fails? The Cold War ended. The bombs remained silent, but humanity did not pause. Science evolved faster than diplomacy. Technology moved beyond steel, atoms, and chemicals. And a new kind of threat emerged, one no treaty could contain. Artificial intelligence, bioengineering, cyberwar. The weapons of today are invisible, instantaneous, and unpredictable. AI can analyze millions of targets in seconds. AI can guide missiles, influence elections, even decide who lives and who dies. Bioengineering allows us to edit DNA, rewrite life itself, and accelerate evolution, both intentionally and accidentally. A single virus, altered in a laboratory, could spread faster than any natural epidemic. And cyberwar. It strikes without warning, erasing economies, disabling infrastructure, and bending societies to the will of those who control code. The battlefield is no longer defined by borders. It is everywhere and nowhere. Every decision can ripple globally. A single algorithm, a single misstep, a single lapse in security can cascade into chaos. Scientists and engineers, once admired as pioneers, now carry a quiet burden. Their creations may heal
or destroy.
History is clear. Every era has seen science exceed the moral imagination of its time. From chemical gas to nuclear weapons, from city-destroying bombs to self-replicating code, each advance carries the same warning. Power without restraint is perilous. And the warning has never been more urgent. Unlike the Cold War, today there is no balance of terror that can keep humanity safe. The threats are decentralized, rapid, and invisible. Governments, corporations, even individuals can wield power once reserved for nations. The question is no longer, can we destroy the world? But will we destroy ourselves before we even realize it? We have entered a new age. An age where human knowledge is limitless, but human wisdom is not. Science is no longer just a tool. It is a mirror, reflecting the ambition, the fear, and the choices of those who wield it. And in that mirror, one truth remains unavoidable. Humanity has the power to survive, or the power to end everything it has ever known. The choice is ours. Airports, hotels, city streets. The weapon is small. The message is large. These incidents are rarely about battlefield advantage. They are about fear, about signaling power, about demonstrating that old prohibitions can still be violated. The most alarming truth is not how often chemical attacks occur. It is how little material is required, how quickly exposure spreads, how difficult it can be to attribute responsibility with certainty. And in a world connected by instant communication, panic can travel faster than the agent itself. Today, chemical warfare is not a global strategy. It is a persistent risk, a reminder that treaties are only as strong as enforcement, that science does not forget, that restraint must be maintained, not assumed. The images from modern chemical attacks are not statistics. They are human faces, communities disrupted, trust broken, and they force us to confront a difficult question. If humanity once agreed these weapons were beyond the line, why do they still cross it? The answer is uncomfortable, because technology is easier to create than to control, because accountability is uneven, because power in the wrong hands rarely restrains itself. Chemical weapons were meant to belong to history. Instead, they remain a warning, not of what humanity was, but of what it is still capable of becoming. Chemical weapons were supposed to be relics of the past. After the trenches of World War I, after the treaties, the protocols, the promises, the world agreed, never again, and yet they returned. Not in world wars, not in global confrontations, but in smaller, darker conflicts, where accountability was fragile and consequences uncertain. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, chemical agents resurfaced in regional wars and targeted attacks. In the 1980s, during the Iran-Iraq War, chemical weapons were deployed on battlefields and against civilians. Mustard gas and nerve agents causing suffering that echoed the horrors of 1915. The images were hauntingly familiar. Victims struggling to breathe, hospitals overwhelmed, entire communities scarred. The world condemned it. Sanctions followed. But condemnation did not erase the damage. Years later, in the Syrian civil war, chemical attacks once again shocked global audiences.
Videos surfaced online.
Families sheltering underground, children gasping for air, chaos unfolding in silence. Investigations by international bodies sought accountability. Some findings were published. Debates followed. But for victims, justice moved slowly, if at all. These were not massive wars between superpowers. They were reminders of something more unsettling. Chemical weapons had never disappeared. They had simply become tools used in shadows. The Chemical Weapons Convention, enacted in 1997, aimed to eliminate entire stockpiles worldwide. And progress has been real. Thousands of tons destroyed. Facilities dismantled. But the knowledge remains. The formulas exist. The expertise exists. And in unstable regions, oversight can fail. In modern times, chemical agents have also appeared in targeted poisonings. Quiet operations carried out in public spaces.
The final question. Can we control what we create?
For over a century, science has reshaped the world. It has cured diseases, connected continents, extended human life beyond anything our ancestors imagined. But it has also burned cities, poisoned air, divided nations, placed extinction within reach. Every generation has faced the same turning point. Discovery, followed by decision. The atom was split. The genome was edited.
Machines were taught to think.
Each breakthrough began with curiosity. Each ended with a question. Who controls this power? History tells us something uncomfortable. Science moves faster than wisdom. Innovation outpaces regulation. Capability grows faster than conscience. And yet, science itself is not the enemy. It is a mirror. It reflects the values of those who fund it, those who direct it, those who fear being left behind. The real danger has never been knowledge. It has been the absence of restraint. From mustard gas in the trenches, to mushroom clouds over cities, to algorithms making decisions at digital speed, the pattern remains. We create, we escalate, we justify, and only afterward we ask if we should have. Now, for the first time in history, humanity holds tools powerful enough to alter life itself, reshape ecosystems, manipulate reality, and potentially end civilization without firing a single shot. The future will not be decided in trenches. It will be decided in laboratories, in code repositories, in corporate boardrooms, in quiet policy meetings, and in the choices of individuals who may never see the consequences of what they build. We are no longer asking whether science can change the world. It already has. The real question is whether humanity can mature fast enough to survive its own brilliance. Can transparency outrun secrecy? Can cooperation outrun competition? Can ethics outrun ambition? Because if history has shown us anything, it is that the line between progress and catastrophe is thinner than we think. Science will continue to advance. That is certain. What remains uncertain is whether we will advance with it. The future is not written in equations. It is written in choices. And this time, the choice belongs to all of us.